right. Welcome to Compliance Corner Monthly. My name is Stephanie-Oyler Rankin. I am our Vice President of Attestation Services here at A-LIGN. I am creeping up here on my 10-year anniversary in just a few days, and I've spent a ton of time here in our SOC practice. I work closely with our ISO and high trust teams as well, and we're always really excited to see this report come out. Every month, we've been diving into one of the key findings from our 2024 Compliance Benchmark Report, and today we are going to discuss how to choose a quality audit partner. The fourth annual report sheds a lot of light on the current state of compliance and offers a lot of insights into the best practices, really what key stakeholders are looking for, what compliance leaders are looking for. So we reached out to over 700 respondents in those fields and career paths. And it's really interesting to see what they have to say. I did bring a guest on today to help shed a little bit of light onto some of these topics at hand. Brandan Tottle is here with us from Magic Labs, and I would love to let him introduce himself here before we get started.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. My name is Brandan Tottle. I'm a former SOC 1, SOC 2, and HIPAA auditor, now managing the security compliance program at Magic Labs. Magic is a non-custodial wallet as a service provider. We make it really easy to instantly create secure Web3 wallets. To date, we've created over 30 million wallets, and we're working with great customers like Polymarket, Forbes, Mattel, and Macy's. Under my leadership, we were the first non-custodial wallet as a service provider in the world to earn SOC 2 Type 2, ISO 27001, and HIPAA attestations. And we've been using A-LIGN for all of our external audits. So thank you again to Stephanie and the A-LIGN team for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks so much, Brandan. All right, let's dive right in. So one of the biggest underlying themes of the 2024 benchmark report was that best-in-class companies really view that partnership is key. So experience and the combination of tech with that experience is really the winning combination. So it's interesting to see how some of the key responses came back, but ultimately we are going to discuss some of the struggles and hurdles that organizations face in the compliance world, specifically in the audit process, and how their compliance strategy as a whole is affected by the audit partner that they choose. So let's go ahead and get into the details of this. I think that it's interesting to, really take into consideration how people and organizations are prioritizing security in their space and not viewing audit as just a checkbox activity. So on the next slide, we're going to get a little bit deeper into this. And I thought these results were very interesting. So as you can see on your screen, we had 6 kind of key areas where we got responses back. And 21% of respondents said that they had limited compliance staff resources of their own. I think, Brandan, you're a great resource to talk a little bit about this as well, and where Magic is in their journey, and what your team looks like, and what the size of that team is, and how you have to lean into a lot of other things. We also saw that 19% of respondents said that the complexity in managing multiple audits was something that was right up there in the high list of hurdles that they face on a day-to-day basis. So you heard Brandan in his introduction briefly mention that he at Magic helps coordinate multiple audits there. So again, Brandan, maybe you can shed a little bit of light into those 2 areas before I keep going down the list here.
Absolutely. I think these challenges are deeply intertwined and significantly impact the quality of the audit process. With only 20% of companies having a dedicated compliance department, the burden often shifts to IT or legal teams, or maybe even other departments that may not know how to translate these compliance requirements into actionable items that other teams can understand. Really, this leads to gaps in documentation and ineffective processes. In turn, can make it more challenging for the auditors to get a complete picture of a company's compliance posture. And then not to mention, when you manage multiple audits, it just compounds these issues as teams navigate different frameworks, again, often leading to inconsistencies and redundancies there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of leads me into the next piece here. 18% of respondents said that manual evidence collection was very tedious and that was troublesome for them. So can you kind of help our listeners and viewers here tie together multiple audits, multiple people that you're collecting information from, manual evidence collection, and really help like bring that to life for users, maybe potentially viewers here that haven't gone through multiple audits. Maybe they're kind of focused on that one audit path right now, where they're just breaking into security and compliance and having to go through their first audits. Talk to our viewers a little bit about that, the complexity of managing multiple audits with a small team and the manual evidence collection piece of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So managing multiple audits with a small team, again, this can really strain your resources that may already be stretched thin. Again, having dedicated compliance folks that understand these requirements and being able to translate those across the organization is key. And then when you add manual evidence collection into that, it can really further strain your resources that are already stretched thin. So again, it's really worth investing into the team itself and really not relying on manual evidence collection for multiple audits. We found much success in dedicating and investing into the team, as well as using technology to help enable our compliance posture there as well.
Sure. Brandan, can you share from your experience, and you've been on both sides of the table, so I think that it's really nice to have your perspective. You've been the auditor, you've been on the other side of growing a compliance program, but based on your experience, these challenges here, how can they really affect the quality of your audit and your audit program?
Yeah, so again, without having the right team in place and trying to do things manually, it's really not a recipe for success, in my opinion. Dedicating time and money into the resources that are going to help grow your security program, and in turn, reflect that in your compliance attestations, really will help communicate trust externally. And if you're going through this process for the first time, your customers and end users really need the assurance that you actually have good controls and processes in place. So yeah, again, in my opinion, it really is worth investing in.
I absolutely agree. So we've talked a little bit about the challenges within the audit process itself, the day-to-day management of the audit. But let's go ahead and flip to the next slide, and let's talk a little bit more about compliance strategy as a whole, because I think that that's also really important to consider here. And this isn't just a checkbox activity. This is kind of a lifelong, we hope, partnership with your audit provider, and that you're not having just a transactional relationship, and I think that that's where some of these challenges really play in and help kind of break down why it may be more important to build a partnership with an audit firm than it is to check the box, sign the contract, get the audit done, and be done with it as fast as you can. So whenever we were asking respondents about the greatest challenges that they have to their overall compliance strategy, so again, not day-to-day audits, the by far largest response rate, 25% of respondents said that, it's really interesting that auditors are reacting to customer demands and not necessarily internal management. So that was a big key finding, and I thought that one was really interesting. The other one was that 17% of respondents said that organizations can't keep up with new compliance requirements. I can relate. I understand that struggle and how it's very real. I have a full-time job in doing that and keeping up with new standards, new needs of our client base, new standards that are being published by various, audit bodies and governing bodies. So I totally understand that. And it is interesting to think about that. Organizations' compliance maybe lags in adapting to new technology, and we had a 14% response rate on that. So, Brandan, what are the long-term effects that some of these roadblocks can have on a compliance team, and how it affects their compliance program as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my opinion, over time, these roadblocks can create a reactive compliance culture instead of a proactive one. Again, this can lead to ineffective practices and an increased risk of noncompliance, as the team may struggle to keep up with evolving requirements. If an organization can't keep pace with new compliance requirements, it comes with potential risks like fines and a damaged reputation. And then, not to mention, when a company is trying to catch up on those requirements, it can strain your resources and disrupt your ongoing compliance activities, which makes it even harder to address those future requirements. And then on the technology piece, when a company fails to adapt to new technology, the program can become outdated and inefficient. This can really hinder the program's ability to scale and manage new compliance challenges. That's why, in my opinion, it's better to build a proactive compliance program instead of a reactive one to avoid these kind of roadblocks down the road.
I would agree. And I have to add here, I think it is really important to have an audit firm that is on speed dial for you, ready to talk to you about the new standards that are coming out, new technological options that you may have, and really a firm that's on the cutting edge of technology, of new standards. And a lot of times, honestly, we're reaching out to our clients at A-LIGN before we're getting tons and tons of calls about different things. We want to keep our clients informed. We want to make sure that they are aware of what's coming. We apply a no surprise rule to all things that we do in business, but whether that's your actual audit and the results of that, or if you are an established client of ours, really letting you know what's coming down the pipeline, what we're hearing in different industry boards and compliance talks. So I think that is important. And it's, Brandan, you're a small team, so these are big items that take up a lot of time. And, maybe you could just give a little bit of insight there on how you rely on some of your partnerships that you have established and relationships that you've grown to keep you in the loop so that you aren't carrying what feels like maybe the entire world on your shoulders from a compliance standpoint.
Absolutely. Being in the Web3 industry, there are a lot of uncertainty around crypto and Web3 in general. So being able to try and stay on top of those new requirements that are coming out. Additionally, whenever ISO 42001 came out, we had tons and tons of resources coming from A-LIGN, and even our account manager reaching out to us to see if that is applicable to us and something we wanted to look into. So just like having the resources around you, there are various groups like ISACA has chapters everywhere to kind of attend those meetings, attend conferences, and being able to stay on top of the new requirements and frameworks that are coming out really is key, because without it, you're really somewhat in the dark for a lot of these things. And you can Google and you'll see a lot of different opinions on a lot of these different frameworks, but being able to actually get a source of truth for the requirements and the best practices really is key.
Brandan, you just made me think of something that's really important. When you're feeling ill or you have some symptoms and things like that, people in the medical field will say, whatever you do, don't Google your symptoms. Don't do that. That's one of the most dangerous things you could ever do, right? You're going to come back with all of these different illnesses that are terminal, that are really scary. And it's just so easy to let that, to go down the rabbit hole of Google whenever it comes to medical problems. I think I could also say the same thing about compliance. When in doubt, pick up the phone and call a professional. Don't try to Google. That is a dangerous game to play. And I know that I've been there. I try my best not to Google anything. I try to go to my guides and my trusted resources through, where we get our licenses and certifications and accreditations through, because there is so much information overload, and it's really hard sometimes to tell the difference between fact and opinion. So you just made me think of that. And I thought that was kind of a funny correlation, because, how many times have you done that where you've looked something up and suddenly you have terminal illnesses and you're terrified for your life? And it's probably the same situation really with compliance. So,
Definitely.
So Mark Petrie from Goodleap quoted, a sharp auditor will not only check the box, but will help implement compliance exercises that add value to your organization and ensure that you're safeguarding your precious asset, your brand reputation. So Brandan, how important do you think it is for an organization to consider auditor quality when they're building brand reputation and building trust with some of their key stakeholders?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to kind of take a step back and remember what these compliance attestations actually do for a company. They help communicate trust. These reports communicate trust to your customers, partners, vendors, investors, etc. Those folks need tangible evidence and assurance that your security program is meeting the best practices and you're not just getting a rubber stamp logo. On the Magic Lab side, from the second anybody opens up our compliance reports, I want the reader to see an audit logo they recognize and can trust, because having auditors who truly dig deep to thoroughly evaluate your processes and controls goes a long way. I personally can attest to the fact that this saves us time down the road, because my customers aren't asking to complete additional questionnaires and jump on, follow-up call after follow-up call. because they already get the assurance they need based on our compliance attestations. So I think that is really important to remember, why we're kind of doing this in the first place in terms of building your brand reputation and trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. The dreaded questionnaire. That's one of the things that we hear most from our customers, and no one enjoys filling those out. So that's great. Let's go ahead and jump into what to look for in an audit partner so that you can build that quality relationship with an audit partner. So let's skip ahead and talk about this. These kind of 6 key findings is what we found in the report. And these were the things that were the most important to the readers. We agree with a lot of these, and I think it is really important to prioritize what your business is looking for and understand how to find a partner, an audit body that can help you do this. So one of the top results here was experience and credentials. So we are talking about industry tenure. We want to find an audit firm who is not, still in infancy, somebody who's been around for a while. They have a lot of experience in the audits that they perform. Quantity of audits that they perform is probably important as well. What does their track record look like? As many of you know, we are required as a CPA firm to go through a peer review. That is a hot topic in the industry, and we do that. You should consider that. Does the firm that you're considering go through a peer review? Who audits the auditor? How credentialed are their auditors? What's your audit team going to look like, and how much experience do they have? Again, Brandan, you've been on both sides of this, so I think you have a very unique viewpoint of it. I know a lot of people who sit in a compliance role have been auditors in their past, career paths and things like that. But Brandan, when you are putting faith into an audit, it does take a lot of dependency on the relationship that you build. Are experience and credentials, one of those things that you individually are looking for when you're trying to find a firm that's right for you?
Absolutely. I mean, picking an audit firm with a strong track record and industry-specific experience is a must, in my opinion. You can request references from similar companies to yours, and you can also, review the auditor's case studies and peer review reports to kind of verify this information. And on the credential side as well, when you work with auditors who understand complex technical concepts, it goes a very long way. For example, when I work with the A-LIGN auditors, they can easily look at a piece of evidence and know exactly what they're looking at and how it fits into the requirements. So that is certainly one thing that we try and really focus on when selecting the right audit partner.
Absolutely. We heard you talk a little bit about this on the last topic, but report quality, and you talked about it from the perspective of building your brand and what that means. When I think about report quality, I do think about a report that's transparent, that's informative, that is not, super short. I want to know the details. I want to know what I'm getting myself into with a potential vendor or provider of some sort. So I do think that it's really important. Are there any red flags that you think of, Brandan, whenever you're thinking about report quality?
All the time. If I'm reviewing a report from one of my vendors, for example, and it's extremely short and the controls aren't as detailed as I hope they would, I really don't get the assurance that I need from them and actually have to push back on them for more information. So that's why it's really important for organizations to understand that selecting an auditor that is going to dig deep into your controls and actually reflect that in the documentation will save you time and efforts down the road. On the Magic Lab side, our SOC 2 report is over 200 pages, for example. So it's like getting the assurance that you need out of these reports, making sure the auditors reflect it in the documentation is key, in my opinion.
So not an issue in the audit process then, if our auditors are really digging deep to try to understand and document and paint a full picture, it sounds like, from your end.
Absolutely.
Awesome. The next item we have here is tech-enabled services. And I think that this is a very talked about topic in the industry, in every industry, whether it's AI focused or it's just tech enablement. If you are an auditor or you were an auditor in your past career path, you know all too well that audits in the past 10 to 15 years have changed drastically. If you go back in time, even a little bit further than that, 15, 20, 25 years ago, the changes are really almost overstimulating to think about. And I think that it's really important to think about the strides in which we've taken in the audit world in a very short, consolidated amount of time. It's been a very, very progressive advancement in what takes a lot of other industries, many, many decades to experience. So I think that's really important to think about, whether you are a team of one, whether you are a team of many. How can software, how can automation, how can integration help you? Brandan, maybe you could speak a little bit about this, because I know that at Magic you guys are pretty progressive and you lean into some different options.
Absolutely. Really leaning into the technology has paid off in the long run for us. We've seen really great results, using software and automation to help support our audit process. Like I said, we use a GRC tool at Magic Labs, and it's extremely refreshing to work with auditors who know the ins and outs of these tools. This actually kind of results in less coaching and handholding on my end, having to walk the auditors through the tool and show them where things live. Luckily, they already kind of know that from the get-go. Again, this has been extremely beneficial during our audits, and having automation and software in place really helps the program grow and scale. Magic Labs is growing like crazy, and our security program needs to scale with it. So really having the technology there has helped enable that for us.
Absolutely. Building off of that and leaning into scalability, one of the things that we feel strongly about, that it seems like respondents of the benchmark report felt strongly about, was, can your audit provider offer a large breadth of services? Can they grow with you? Are they willing to grow with you? Does their book of products grow as different standards evolve and come out? And I think that is really, really important. As we all know, there are different evolving standards that come out, whether it's related to potentially AI. We have some new AI products that are coming out. Whether those are related to healthcare or, just the type of service provider that you are. So I think that those are really important. And Brandan, I have to just kind of assume naturally that that's something that you guys take into consideration as well, because a few slides ago, we talked about one of the struggles that respondents, claimed to have through the audit process was that they were repeating the audit process multiple times, and kind of the pain in that. And maybe you can talk a little bit to that, because you guys are doing 3 audits. And what does that actually look like? Like, tangibly speaking, how does that change your audit experience?
Absolutely. So it really saves duplicate efforts and redundancy, in my opinion. As you know, we're using A-LIGN for SOC, ISO, and HIPAA. Aside from having one provider for these different frameworks, A-LIGN does a really great job of actually streamlining the fieldwork process when you're dealing with multiple frameworks. I don't need to explain our processes and controls 3 different times to 3 different auditors. We have all the auditors join the calls, and we can address the requirements from each framework in real time. This approach has really saved us a lot of time and reduced duplicate efforts during the audit process. And really, when you're going through an audit, especially for the first time, you want to be as efficient as possible. And A-LIGN really has done a great job, in my experience, of fulfilling that for us.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting note there. Even if your job is full-time compliance for your organization, you don't want to spend all year in an actual audit. You
Right.
have other things to do to maintain and uphold the security of your business. Your job isn't about audits. Your job is about security. So getting in and out, being efficient, not repeating yourself, multiple times, answering the same questions over and over, I do think is really key to you getting on and doing the meat and the potatoes of the work that you do, so that when you get to audit time, you have good, clean results. Your organization is functioning collectively, without hurdles. So I think that is really, really important. One of the other things that we had here was global network with local presence. We are a global company here at A-LIGN. We do have 4 offices throughout the world, one of them being the United States. I kind of joke about this because it's one office, but it's really one very large country that we are spread out throughout. And I really think that this is important. Brandan, I know you guys use more of a local team to you, and that's kind of the key point here, right? Is that we have people stationed throughout the world so that they are really in tune with local regulations and how to best serve our clients, whether they are unique requirements for the region that you are doing business in, region, or maybe perhaps you have a customer or group of customers that is not in the same region that you're in, allowing a space where we can really come in from a professional viewpoint and assess and, provide some feedback on. So I think that that is really important. Lastly here, we had reputation and references. I think reputation goes a long ways. When you're building a brand of quality, you want an auditor that is known for their quality, that is reputable. It has a logo that is recognizable. You are a known player in the field. And I think that that is really important. Look for things in an audit partner like case studies, success stories of growth of a compliance program, not just a single audit. That's almost the easy stuff whenever we're thinking about the grand scheme of things. Think about referrals that are building a true compliance strategy and program. I think that that's where you get into really the high end of quality, and you're not just looking for a single success story of a single audit, because at the end of the day, that's, a lot of people can offer a single audit. Think about things like industry recognition as well. I think that as you go through these things, customers will really paint the story for what your experience will be like as a customer as well. And it is nice to know that you are in like company. So definitely important to consider there. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, Brandan, I think that it's been really great. I would love, any final words or any last take that you have on kind of these collective things that you would look for in an auditor. Is there anything else that maybe isn't on here that from your personal experience you think is really important to consider that we haven't already talked about, or anything that you'd like to add to any of these bullet points?
Yeah, I see a lot of discussions in the space right now around pricing. And I really just kind of want to get it across to the organizations and anybody watching that it really is worth investing in a good and quality audit partner. A lot of firms out there may charge a lot less, and they may promise to get you a SOC 2 report in a number of weeks. Again, you may actually be doing a disservice to your organization if these folks don't actually dig deep and provide that documentation into the report to give your customers that real assurance. Again, really the kind of purpose of going through these audits is to communicate trust, to demonstrate your security posture. So again, I really want to kind of lean into the fact that compliance and working with the right audit partner is worth investing in and will pay off for you down the road.
Absolutely. It looks like we have some Q&A that's come in, and Brandan, I think this question actually syncs up very well with what you were just saying, but what are the risks or consequences, in your opinion, of working with an audit firm that lacks these qualities? How bad can this be?
So again, if you're trying to land customers, they get no assurance, or not the assurance that they hope they would have gotten from these kind of reports from these audit firms that may not do as good of a job as a firm like A-LIGN would. Again, you really want an auditor that is going to dig deep to evaluate your controls and processes and reflect that in the documentation. But it's important to note as well that these auditors, they're not out to get you. They want to help you. They really want to help improve your security posture and improve your security program as a whole. Every time I've gone through an A-LIGN audit, I've walked away with tons and tons of really great recommendations, whether they're OFIs, actual findings, exceptions, whatever the case are. It really kind of helps us build a better program down the road. Absolutely.
This question came in, and it maybe is more for me, but how can I ensure the audit provider has a good reputation before I engage? I think that it is important to understand that the audit provider and the audit experience that we offer at A-LIGN is not a getcha mentality. We are not interested in playing that game. And in fact, we don't really find it fun to grade papers or anything like that. We'd probably have a different profession if we did, but there are many different ways. I think, Brandan, what you just said is one of those. We are out to help and partner with you. We want to give you industry recommendations. We want to give you best practices at the end of the day, so that you can improve and year over year, not only elevate your security posture, but also elevate the quality of your report and what you're giving out to the end users of the report, whether it's key stakeholders, key investors, key clients, sometimes using that in the sales process as well. Like I mentioned earlier, there is a requirement from the AICPA to do a peer review there are also a lot of other accreditation bodies in the ISO realm, and many of the other practices as well that we operate that require third-party independent assessments of us. So the auditor never really goes unaudited. In fact, we have many folks of our own that spend a lot of dedicated time to that. Ask the audit provider for that. That's totally okay. And whenever you are searching for that, you should take that into consideration. You should view what accreditations and certifications is and licenses that they have. So I thought that was great. Brandan, so you guys, you mentioned earlier, you were one of the first in your industry to gain some of the reports that you have and certifications. How important would you say it is to choose an auditor with specific experience in your particular industry? How does that help change your audit trajectory?
Yeah, I do think it is important because these folks would be familiar with the industry itself. They may be familiar with some specific processes that are tied to that industry, as well as the technology. Like I said, on the Magic Lab side, we were the first wallet as a service provider to earn these frameworks, to earn these attestation reports. And really kind of my hope from that is like, we want to be somewhat of an inspiration to other firms, other companies in our industry to start thinking a little bit more seriously about compliance. Like they can look to Magic Labs and say, oh yeah, they're thinking about ISO, they're thinking about HIPAA, maybe we should start thinking about those things as well. So not only working with the right provider, but also working with the provider that has that industry specific experience really kind of help facilitate a more effective and streamlined audit process, in my opinion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Looks like we had another question come in. The question is, do you recommend multiple SOC 2 reports for different client solutions, or is it better to bundle them across multiple applications? And Brandan, I'll take this one. It really depends on how different your applications are from one another. And if you have clients that are potentially purchasing both applications from you and how similar those services are, you can actually go through a single audit experience and come out of the other side with two different reports. So that's good to know as well. Just because the two audits are consolidated, you can have two different reports. You can have one consolidated report. I really think this answer is the muddy answer is it depends, right? But it depends on what your preference as an organization is. It depends on what types of services your clients are bundling together, and if they're interacting through both, or if you have some that are more segmented. So we can do what's best for you. I think that's the kind of beautiful thing about SOC 2 and that world is that there is no singular right answer. Thanks to the nature of the report, it can be either, and it's really what makes sense. What is best for your customers, for you as an organization, maybe your key stakeholders as well. It's a great question. Awesome. Well, I think we have had quite a few questions come in here, scanning to make sure that I haven't missed any. It looks like we have gotten most of those. I don't see any others come through. So I really want to thank you guys for joining us. I know it's 30 minutes is kind of a big chunk of time to take out of your day, but I do really appreciate it. And I hope that everyone was able to gather really how important it is to select the right audit partner in your journey and how much of a difference it can make in really maintaining a very streamlined, robust compliance program. So, as you are considering these things, please keep these things in mind. It is important to your brand to choose a known brand and known quality for your audit services. So whether it's, experienced auditors, audit management technology, I think that fits for a lot of folks. Consolidating your audit efforts, that is one of the biggest pieces in my experience and what I've done here at A-LIGN for the last several years and what I continue to do. That one really hits home for me is technology is so, I almost take it for granted, I think a lot of times. And it's so much of naturally just what we do at A-LIGN, the way that we manage our audits, the way that we, communicate with our clients. It's not outdated. It is a very forward thinking way that we do that. And we use technology to do so, but also the breadth of our services and how we really want to streamline the experience that you have so that you have more time to get back to actually improving your security and running a solid program. So I think that's all really important. I hope you all found this insightful. We do have the report available for you to download today, so I encourage you to do that. Please download it, read through it. Like I said earlier, we do these monthly to talk about different key findings in the report, so this will not be not be the last one, but please do download it. And also, whenever we wrap up here, stay on for just a moment or two. We would love to hear from you. A short survey after this webinar. And again, I just want to thank you all for joining. Brandan, thank you so much for joining and sharing your insights as well. It's been a great time talking to you.
My pleasure. Thank you again, Stephanie and the A-LIGN team for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks all. Have a great day.